Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you guys how to replace the oil cooler and associated gaskets on this 2015 Volkswagen Jetta TSI with a 1.8 turbo. This is going to be pretty involved here. You have to remove a lot of stuff to get to this oil cooler, and you got to remove the oil filter housing and the alternator. So this isn't going to be too fun, but I'm going to work you through the steps here. The oil cooler is actually right there, and here are the parts. Here are the gaskets. The oil cooler itself right here. That's what it looks like. This is the oil filter housing gasket. There's the part number. Check out the description for links and part numbers, guys. This is the oil cooler gasket. Here's the oil cooler brand and part number. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery first. You'll need a 10mm socket. Remember, disconnect the negative first, then positive. Next, we need to remove the serpentine belt. So what you need to do is get yourself a 16mm socket and put it on the tensioner down here and turn it clockwise, and it will release tension, and you can slip the belt over top of the alternator pulley just like this here. Okay, there we go. Now the belt is off of the alternator pulley. On to the next step. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and remove this T30 screw here and this one here to give me more wiggle room to move these hoses out of the way a little bit so that we can pull this alternator up through. Hopefully it works out. And then we can remove the alternator bolts here and over here. And there's a couple down here as well. Okay, I removed those two T30 torque screws holding these hoses where they're supposed to be at. And now you can see we have a lot of play. We can lift those up out of the way and we should be able to pull the alternator up through here. Now we can remove the four 13mm bolts that hold the alternator onto this oil filter housing bracket. These two up here are pretty easy. The one on the bottom right over here is going to be somewhat challenging. It's hard to get a ratchet in there. I have my ratchet right here for this bolt on the bottom. That one's easy. Now the one on the other side is going to be the one that's going to be the most difficult. Alright, so I have my ratchet positioned like that. It's tight, but it works. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to remove that bolt. That's loose. This one here, that one's loose too. I'll get these ones on the top. That's loose. One more. Okay, that's loose. Now I can get them all by hand and then remove that alternator. Okay, I have all the bolts removed, but that bottom right one, just because I can't get it out because it'll hit the cooling fans, because they're pretty long bolts. They look like this. So what we're going to do now is pull the alternator out a little bit and then disconnect the electrical wires in the back side here. I believe there are two. One's a connector and the other one's actually bolted on. So we need to maneuver this out so that we can do that, and just be very careful and take your time with it. There's a connector on the back side. See that connector right here where my finger's at? There's a wire coming out of the back of it there, right here. Have to pull that off. And then there's a little dust cap over top of it. It looks like an acorn nut, or an acorn cap, I should say. That right there. So we'll have to get that off there too. Okay, so I'm ready to remove that 13mm nut that holds the cable on. I popped this little cover off. That's 13mm. What I had to do is use a long flathead screwdriver like this. I went down in there and managed to pop that cover off. And now I can get my 13mm, this is 1/4 inch drive. I can get it in there and loosen that nut and then remove that cable. This is very tedious and annoying, but if there's a will, there's a way. You can do it. I'm slowly loosening that nut up, and it's just about to come off there, so I'm going to remove my ratchet and try to get it by hand the rest of the way, and then pop that cable off. A little bit more. Okay, there we go. That's it. That's off. Set it in a safe spot. I have all my hardware here. There's the 4 alternator bolts, and there's the nut there for the cable. And I can pop the cable off. It already came off, and now the alternator is free and ready to come on out of here. Hopefully, it comes up through this hole here, which it should. Looks like there's enough room. Actually, I'm going to probably take these connectors off first. They come off anyway, off this oil filter housing, because we're going to remove this thing. So these are just a standard type connectors. Push down right here and pull out. Same with that one. This one looks like it has a blue plastic piece, and it's color coded. There with that, see the blue there, so you know where that goes. So you don't get those two swapped when you go to reinstall. Wow, is that a tight fit? Whew. Okay, it's out of there. There's a better view from the back side. All right, on to the next step. So while I'm in this area here, I'm going to go ahead and remove that T30 screw that secures the dipstick tube to the oil filter housing. Just one screw. Just be careful you don't drop it and lose it. Now for the next step, we need to remove the AC compressor, and there's a bolt right here. It's 13 millimeter, and then the rest of the hardware is underneath the vehicle here. Make sure your vehicle is safely supported before you crawl underneath it. I have it supported by these race ramps. They're great to have. And I've already removed the splash shield, and that exposes our AC compressor right here. We have a bolt there and one right here. So we need to remove those three, then it should dangle by the hard lines, and that should support it enough so we can continue on and remove that bracket. Alright, for this bolt here, I'm using 3/8 drive ratchet with a 13 millimeter deep well. It's tight because you have the cooling fan there and there's not much room, but that works. This other one, no problem. I found it easier to use this open-ended wrench on this bolt here. There wasn't enough room to get my ratchet in there. It was just too tight with that compressor hose. So once I get this one out of here, I'll have the one on top, and that'll be it as far as the mounting goes for this compressor. Okay, those bolts are both out. They're pretty long, as you can see. So we're done down here. We can go ahead up there and remove that last one. This one right here. I already broke it loose, so it's just hand tight. Alright, that bolt's out. Now this compressor is just kind of dangling here. It's held on by all the hard lines, and it's kind of resting on that lower radiator line there. So now we can go ahead and continue on here with this oil filter bracket, and we have several bolts here we need to remove, and these are a different style bolt. Okay, this is what you need right here. This is an M10 triple square, or 12 point, and there are a total of 5 bolts holding this bracket on. So you can see this fits in here perfectly, just like that. Then you can put your ratchet on there and remove them. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, and there's a fourth one down right there, right in there. I know it's tough to see, but it's there. And then the most difficult one, it's going to be very challenging, which is right behind this AC compressor. It's up in there, there's a little cavity. It's up in there, so it's going to be very, very tough to get the ratchet up in there. Okay, the 3 top bolts are easy to get at. Alright, I'll try to get you in here close to see. So you have that one on top, 2, 3, and then where my ratchet's at, right down there. That's the fourth one. And what you have to do is wiggle that AC compressor out of the way so you can get at it, and make sure your triple squares in there all the way. You don't want to strip these, and go ahead and break it loose. Alright, before I go ahead and remove the bracket, I'm going to go ahead and remove the oil filter. This way, this will give us more room to get this whole thing out of here without the oil filter housing in place. And we're going to have to do an oil change here anyway after we're all said and done here. So yeah, when you remove the bracket, you will get a little bit of oil to leak out. That's just what's going to happen. This is a 32 millimeter hex on top here. This fits over here perfectly. Go ahead and loosen this up. Have some rags ready. I'm going to go ahead and put a rag over top of this to prevent any debris from getting down inside there temporarily. And we'll go ahead and proceed. So I went and bought these shallow impact triple square sockets. I bought this set. As you can see, I have the M10 out of here. It's on the vehicle right now. But look at the difference in length here. And you need this shallow type for this bolt. So you'll see underneath here what I'm talking about. Right there, there's hardly any clearance. Unless you remove this AC compressor all the way, which I don't want to do. So I have my ratchet there, 3/8 drive with that shallow M10 triple square there. And I was able to break it loose. It's loose right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take it out the rest of the way. I'm probably going to have to take my ratchet off of that socket and just loosen it by hand and remove it. And then that should be it besides this wiring here, this clip. I'll have to pop that off and then I'll be able to remove it. Okay, I managed to get that bolt out and I popped this clip off here. You have to get a screwdriver underneath it and just be easy with it and it'll pop off of there. So now I can continue removing all these bolts for this oil filter housing bracket and it should come off. Alright, so I have one more bolt to pull out here. These three are the longer bolts. They're like this, and I have them laid out over here like so. So that's, you know, how they go. And these are the two shorter bolts. And I do have the pan there because we're gonna have some coolant drip out of there and a little bit of oil maybe. So now I can go ahead and grab a hold of this housing and it should come free. It is tight because that oil cooler is actually held in the back here. There's a fitting back there and it's a tight fit. There we go. See, I'm losing a little bit of coolant there. Alright, there we go. And there goes the coolant. Just let it drain. Then pull this housing out of here. Okay, this is it. And that's the fitting right there I was talking to you about. That's a really tight fit. I did get a new one of those. So we're going to replace that along with this seal and this oil cooler here, and there's a seal behind there as well. But this is where the leak was coming from. This seal is just completely shot. So we're going to go ahead and replace that. What a mess. Alright, we need to remove this seal. If you have a little pick tool like this, it works out great. Just get in there, anywhere, and kind of dig into the seal, and it'll pop out of there. Once you get it started, then you just keep on going. That piece broke off right there. Yeah, this definitely needed replaced. Alright, now what we need to do is clean this surface up really well and install the new gasket. Alright, the next step, I'm going to go ahead and remove this oil cooler. You'll need a T45 style socket like this. Fits in here perfectly. Alright, now this should separate. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's the other seal that we need to replace. And I bought a new one of these, so I can throw this away. And now we have the same thing here. We have this seal removed, so take your pick tool and get behind that seal. You kind of got to dig into it. Once you get it started, it'll go. There we go. Okay, that's it. That's junk. Now I go ahead and clean that up real good and install a new seal. We're ready for the new seal. Make sure the surface is clean and this groove all along here is clean. There isn't any debris in there. Looks pretty good. So we have our new seal right here. Just line it up and press it into place. It's time to install the new oil cooler. See the gaskets in place. This can only go on one way. So once you get it lined up, go ahead and thread in your bolts. Now I can install this last seal. Okay, it looks pretty good. Now this unit is ready to go into the vehicle. The only thing we have to do is pop this little cover off here and install that union that mounts in here. with the 2 seals that goes on the water pump, and I have that right here. Here's the part number. They call it a water pump union. This is a very snug fit. So what we're going to do is, it doesn't matter which end goes on which side, because they're both the same. So we're going to stick one end in here, and then when we go to install, we'll have to line this up with the water pump and then firmly push until it pops into place. Alright, I put a little thin film of coolant on the outside of that seal to see if it aids in this going in here, because it is super duper tight. There we go. Nice. That's ready to go. Okay, the next step is going to be to clean this area up. All this whole mess here, and then this mounting surface right here where that seal goes, that'll need cleaned up really well before we go ahead and bring that oil filter housing back in. Yeah, this all needs cleaned up. This has been leaking for a while. I noticed oil and coolant leaking, so this is why I decided to do this. It definitely needed done. Okay, I have this area cleaned up. I'm now ready to install the oil filter housing bracket. So we'll grab our unit right here and bring it up into position. This is going to be a little tricky, a little tedious, but you'll need to have some patience and slowly slide this down into position. Alright, so what we want to do is line that union up with the water pump. And I know it's difficult to see, but you have to try to get your head down in there and line that up. It's hard to film this part. Okay, what I did was stuck my hand down through this way and felt the union lined up with the water pump hole there, and now that I'm lined up, I'm ready to apply some force here and pop it into place. Okay, I decided to try a different approach here. I took the union out, stuck it in the water pump there, and I'm going to try to bring this assembly back up and try to do it that way. Okay, I finally got the housing in position. I got one bolt started in by hand up top just to secure it there, but that was the worst part of this whole thing, trying to get that lined up. But I got it. It took multiple attempts, but the best way for me was to put that union in the plastic water pump housing first, and then line the oil cooler up with it, and then push it into place. So it worked out. Okay, these bolts are all hand tight. There's a special sequence to torque these down. You start with the top bolt. It's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Do it in that order. They get torqued to 20 Newton meters. Alright, I got the AC compressor mounted. Everything's tight down here. And also I clipped that clip back on for the wire there, so that's good. So I'm done down here and go back up top and install the alternator. Okay, the alternator is back in position, as well as the serpentine belt and these connections here. These 2 screws are back where they need to be in the intake manifold, securing these hoses. The only thing I need to do yet is change the oil and hook up those battery terminals. I did add a little bit of coolant to the reservoir, because once the thermostat opens up, it's going to start to withdraw coolant from here. So we need to have some in there at all times and keep an eye on that. This is how much we lost. There's a little bit of oil mixed in with that, as you can see. If you refer to your owner's manual, it'll tell you what coolant to use. This is on page 313. Right here it says G13. 40% G13 with distilled water. Make sure you use distilled water. And you can mix it with G12++, but do not mix it with G12 plus or G11. Here's the coolant that I have. This is G13. There's your part number. It is pink in color. So I'm going to use this and mix it with distilled water. Okay, the vehicle's running. I backed it off the ramp. I'm outside here. And this level actually did drop in the expansion tank, so I had to add some more coolant and distilled water. I'm keeping an eye on it now, but it looks like it's slowly dropping a little bit. So I'm just going to continue to keep an eye on that and monitor that as the engine heats up. Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope this video helped you out. Hit that like button if it did. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.